Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Woodard, and today I'm going to be going over with you what my final project is. And I'm first going to start with my rationale and purpose behind what I have created, and then I'll move on to show you how it was actually created. So I created a to-do list web application for my project. I did this because I'm a college student and I'm an athlete at college, and so a lot of times I am forgetting certain meetings I need to go to, or maybe I forget a homework assignment here and there. And so I think it's been really helpful for me using something like a to-do list in order to organize my information and tasks so I don't forget them. And so I wanted to extend this application to other college students and athletes that are also struggling with some organization and remembering all of the assignments and tasks that they need to complete. And so this web application also extends past my target audience. This is just a to-do list web application and anyone can use it. But my purpose and rationale behind creating this was for the purpose of college students and athletes who are struggling to organize all of their tasks. So now, right before I jump into like the source code and how this was actually completed, I wanted to briefly show you all the functionality of this to-do list application. And so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do right now. So as we can see, we're on the login page. So you have to be logged in order to use the to-do list application. But there is functionality for non-logged in users. And so I'll just go ahead and start with that before I get into the full to-do list. So I have this right here. It's called Take a Look at This Form. And then I have a form link. So this is for the non-logged in users. So you can click on the form and it says, do you think a to-do list is beneficial for college students? And so I have a text box here and you can just type yes or no. I'm going to say yes, and then you'll click submit and it'll redirect you back to the login page because if you're not logged in, you don't have the functionality of the to-do list. So now I'm going to go ahead and log in for you. And so you can see I have some tasks here that I created. And so I just kind of want to show you all the functionality that this to-do list holds. So as we can see up here, it says hi, and then it has the username, and then it tells me how many incomplete tasks that I have. As you can see, the ones that are marked off are completed tasks. And so we'll start with the search function. So I have travel on here. So we'll just type in the letter T. I can literally search by just the starting letter, and boom, travel comes up. And so essentially, that's the search method. And so if I want to edit a task, I can click on Finish Project. And let's say I want to add a description. We'll say Finish Project tomorrow. And we'll just click Submit. So now when I go into Finish Project, I have a description for it. And I can also say, okay, I did that. I completed it. Now that is finished right there, Finish Project. And so maybe we want to delete it now. Boom, and go here. Are you sure you want to delete this task? Yes, so we click delete. And so you can also add a task. We'll add study for finals. And so I can click submit, and now study for finals is up here. And so I can go ahead and log out. And so I created multiple users because I wanted to show you that this user, Jacob W, actually has his own tasks and not tasks from other people. So now if I log in with, we'll say Harry, and log in, Harry has his own task, which is soccer. And so I'll go ahead and log out. And lastly, I wanted to show you my register page. So we will, let's see here, we'll do Carter as the username and the password. We'll create a quick password. And we will register. And so now it created Carter. And so we can go ahead and log out. So that is the functionality of my to-do list. And so I'm going to now go ahead and show you the code behind this project. So first I'm going to start with the models. And so basically in models, this is where database tables are constructed. And so this is where I created some classes to represent a table. And so the class is acting as the table, and the attributes of the class are going to be acting as the model columns. So essentially, I want a specific task that we create to be owned by a specific user for this to-do list. So that's where we see user right here that we've added as an attribute. And so I wanted to import the Django user model, which is imported right here. And so basically, Django is nice because it already has some tables built out for us. So importing the user model is going to take care of our user information, like username, email, password. And this model by default does handle authentication. So one user essentially can have many items. So now I'm going to go ahead and start talking about what is in this class. So one user can essentially have many items. This is done through the foreign key method. So for example, the user is going to have a title description, and it can hold a completed task. It can create a task. A user can hold all of those components. And so in this user section right here, I have the onDelete method, which essentially just means that if in administration a user is deleted, that the tasks from that user are also going to be deleted. So next we have the title, which is just a character field, max length of 200. So that's just going to be the title of the task. Then we have the description, and the description is basically a text field. And next we have complete, which is a Boolean field just telling us it's a true or false value, which is just telling us if that task is completed or not. And then we have created right here, which is essentially a datetime field. So whenever a task is created, I have the auto now add equals true method put in there to show that whenever a task is created, a date and time will be stamped onto that task. And so next, I needed to create this function right here to set the string value, and then right after that, I needed some metadata right here. So my metadata is basically how this how this list of tasks is going to be ordered. And so my ordering is going to be based off of whether or not the task is completed or not. If the task is completed, then it's going to be sent to the bottom of the list. And as you saw previously, it was crossed out. So that's essentially my models.py. So next, I'm going to go over the views.py. So I have quite a bit of views and class-based views in this application, and that is how I created my web application by using class-based views. And so briefly, I'm going to explain class-based views, and I'm going to show you an example. And so after I show you an example, I'm going to kind of show you that example in depth. And then for the rest of my class-based views, I'm going to kind of just explain the functionality for them so I can get through the rest of the presentation in an orderly fashion. So essentially, I use class-based views for my application, and class-based views are basically an alternative selection to using function-based views. So to me, this makes the code a little simpler and not as lengthy. And a lot of these class-based views are generated from imports from Django that give us tables of information that we need. So I have a bunch of class-based views here, like index view, custom login view, register page. So, but to begin, I actually wanted to go over the class task list. And so this is basically going to be my list of tasks. And so I kind of think this is a really good class-based view to use to explain how class-based views work. So for my class task list, it is going to inherit from list view. And so list view, I imported that right there. And so essentially what this means is that we're going to have all the functionality list view has from the Django database. And so this class-based view is going to return a template with a query set of data, and that's for all of these class-based views. And so what this means is, by default, this view is going to be looking for a template, and that template name in this scenario is going to be called tasklist.html. And so it's going to be looking for that page to hold the list view information. So I actually have to go create task_list.html so that information can be put into that template. And so that's essentially how the class-based views are working. And also regarding the query set of data, it is going to be looking for something called object_list. And so that is where right here, I used context_object_name to rename object_list to tasks. So now when I do go to my task_list.html, I can refer to tasks instead of object list. It just makes it a little bit easier. And after I get through these class-based views, I'm going to be taking a look at my HTML pages with you guys. So After that, though, one problem I was having during this list view is that if a user logged in, the tasks weren't like specified to the user. So for example, if I was if I logged out of Jacob and logged into John, John would see Jacob's tasks. So I wanted to create a function right here, which is called definition get context data. And basically, all of this information right here is, well, not the search input, sorry. The def get, this definition right here, this function that I created is going to make sure that a user gets their own data. And, Jacob isn't going to get John's data and John's not going to get Jacob's data. So that's essentially how the class-based views work. And so since I'm in this task list, I'm going to continue on there. And so this is where I created my search input. So basically, this is where I created the functionality for being able to search for a task. And as you can see right here, the title starts with, so if it starts with a G and I click search, it'll find all tasks that start with a G. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back up here. Now I'm going to go through the rest of these views rather quickly now that you know how class-based views work and just kind of explain the functionality for each of these. So for the class index view, what I wanted to create was the functionality for non-logged in users. So this is where I'm holding my question, and that question is going to be held in this base index HTML, and that's where I actually wrote the question. And so basically, as you saw, it was a text form. And so basically what that means is that you could like type into it and then click submit, and all of like that, like the form information is all in my HTML page that I will show later on. And then I redirected the authenticated user to the page tasks. So now we're going to go to the custom login view, and this is inheriting from login view. And so this is going to be directed towards that template, which is the login.html page. And so this is essentially where you're logging in. And so right here, this is just saying, if you're authenticated, then you're going to be logged in. And so yeah, that's what's happening in that custom login view portion. And then we have our register page, which is pointing towards the register HTML. And so we are inheriting from form view, and that is where we have user creation form, this form class right here. And so it creates us actually the register page information, which as you saw on there, it was username, password, and confirm password. It creates that stuff for us. We just need to create the register.html page and put the form on there. And so then, once again, this is going to be redirecting our authenticated users and log them in. And that's actually what I have these functions here for, is whenever these users are, they click like, register, it's actually going to log them in. After it logs them in, it is then going to put them in the list view for the tasks. And that's what these two functions right here do. And so now moving on, yeah, we went over the class task list. So I'm going to keep moving on and go over to these last class-based views that we have. And we have class task detail, which is going to be essentially giving the task detail is going to be giving our page the tasks an ID. So for example, if I create a task called get milk, if that's my first task, it's going to be giving it the ID 1. And so that's what task detail is going to be able to do, is just give it that ID. And so next we have class task create. And so basically all this is doing right here is going to be giving us the functionality to create a task. And then when we create that task, this form right here is going to be showing what's going to be able to create that task specifically to the user. And so next we have our class task update, and this allows us to update our tasks, whether it is going to be editing the description or marking it as completed. And then lastly, we have the delete view. This allows us to delete these tasks. One last thing I wanted to go over is this login required mixin. So I did import that up here, right here. And so this is what makes it required for the user to log in. So if they're not logged in, that mixin will, that's what's making it to where the users have to log in to access that task list. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the URLs page. And so my URLs page, this is just my URL patterns. As we can see right here, I just created the path that I wanted these to go to in order to point towards these specific pages. For example, as I was mentioning the login page, as it was base login HTML, I wanted to point that towards login. And so that's basically what I did, and I imported each one of those class-based views onto this urls.py. So we don't have very much code in the admin. I did not have to do too much here other than put my models.py task in here. So when I went to administration, I could see those tasks in the administration. So next we have the index page. And essentially the index page, like I was mentioning, was just the index page, as I was mentioning, was essentially for my non-logged in users, giving them some functionality to where they could fill out a form. And so as you can see here, I have my question: do you think a to-do list is beneficial for college students? And so as you can see, I have like some div classes with, this class's header bar. I have some of these things on this page because I used those div classes to style these forms. But essentially, yeah, as you can see, I have a button class type submit. So that's how I have the submit button. And right here at the class text form, which created that text form. So moving on to the login page, this is essentially what you saw at the very, very beginning. You can go click right over here really quick. This is our login page. So all the stuff I put in here created that. We have like the submit button for value login. And then I also have, class card body, class header bar, and all these things to style and to style this to make it look pretty. So that's pretty much essentially what is happening here. And then moving on to our main, this is where I have all of my styling. And so if I go back over here to like login, I have extends base main HTML. So here's my main. Then I have block content and block content. So I did this for all of my HTML pages. So everything I styled in main is applied to all of my other pages. So we have our register page. As you guys have seen our register page, I can go back and point to that. This is what it looks like. So if we go over here to register, once again, have those div classes that are styled in the main. And so right here, this might look a little interesting. We have like form username label, form password label one, well, form password one label, and then form password two label. So when we are inheriting the register page from the Django database, basically it gives us a lot more information than we need. It tells us below, like if you were to go here at register below username, it would give you description of how to create a good username, how to create a good password, and so what characters and things like that you needed to use. So I just wanted, as you saw, the username, the password, and the password confirmation. So that is what this is doing right here. And so if you already have an account, it points to the URL login, as you can see right here. And so now we can go over to our task confirm delete. All this page is doing is essentially giving us the ability to delete those tasks. So this is whenever we log into, you go to log in, you switch this user. Whenever we click on, sorry, that was not the correct thing. Whenever I click on the delete task, this is the page that we're looking at. Are you sure you want to delete this task? And then you can delete it or you can go back. That's what task confirm is. As you can see right here, are you sure you want to delete this task? We have our type submit button. So moving on to our last two pages, we have our task form.html, and this is basically creating the back button link to navigate away from editing or creating a task back to the task list. So for example, if I create travel, the back button here, if I go to add a task, the back button here, it navigates me back to this task list. That is what task form is doing. That's why there's very little here. We just have a back button. So lastly, we have our task list. And so this is basically this entire page. So that's why there's a lot more code on here because and a lot more styling. As you see, we have the div ID, search add wrapper. We have task items wrapper, task complete icon, and that's where we're having things like this icon is being styled the way that we see this being styled on this header bar. That is how that's happening, the way the search functionality is being styled. That's where all of this stuff is. And that is also where, we put this information of our tasks. That is where all that information came from, was from this task list page from our um, from our list view, class-based view. And so basically that is what my project looks like. That is the functionality of my project. And so there was a lot of things that I learned in here. I wasn't too familiar with class-based views, but I've done a lot of research to figure out the best way to create this project. And when I was looking at class-based views, that's what seemed to be the simplest. And so when I was doing some research on that, that is how I was able to build this project. And I would say my biggest challenge is if I go back to views and I go to my index view, it was honestly figuring out how to get that text form in there and able to do that with giving non-logged in users access. As you can see, I'm not logged in yet, and I click form. It was the hardest to get this text form in here and allow a non-logged in user to get here. So that was my hardest part, but I was able to overcome that by trial and error. And so I was very excited doing this. This took me quite a while throughout the semester to do, and I'm very excited that it is completed. And I wanted to thank you all for listening, and that is what my final project looks like. Thank you.